Hi, my name's Andy and I work here in the West Midlands of England working with woodlands and promoting woodland management. Many people think that our woodlands have always looked like this. The woodlands we see and visit now, the place where you walk your dog, the place where you take your bike for a ride. But the woodlands haven't always been like this. Britain was covered in a wildwood thousands of years ago after the Ice Age that was a thick, impenetrable thicket where the only light to reach the forest floor was when a tree was blown off or fell down. But the woodlands we see now are very, very different. They're the product of thousands of years of man's management. For most of that time, from the late Stone Age through to around the late 1800s, these woodlands were managed as something called coppice with standards. That's where the underwood, the understory, the small shrubs like hazel and coppiced bigger trees like ash are regularly cut on a cycle to produce straight young poles that can be used in the shape they're grown to produce the products that supported the industries of the day, from fencing, creating crates and boxes, to structural timbers for buildings. And the larger trees, the standards in the coppice with standards, were grown to a full-size timber tree that could be milled to make square sawn boards for the main structural timbers of the great ships that defeated the Armada, for example. So these woodlands, they're not wild, they don't need leaving alone. What they need is repetition of the management that they've known for centuries. In more recent times, in the 20th century, British woodland was heavily coniferised, introduced species of evergreen conifers which grew quickly and produced quality straight timber for the construction and furniture markets. The woodland behind me is typical of a native broadleafed English woodland. It has a dense, thick canopy that really lets in very little light to the forest floor, suppressing the regeneration of our native tree species and discouraging the ground flora. There are other problems in our woodlands as well, and ones that aren't helped by this neglected, closed canopy structure to our woods. They are mainly deer and the grey squirrel. Increasing deer populations, in fact there are now more deer in this country, particularly England, than there ever have been, even in the times of the wildwood. Increased deer populations, hiding in this dense, thick woodland and eating any little scrap of regeneration and young trees that come up are preventing our woodlands from regenerating. Many forest managers have to fence areas of woodland off to allow the young trees to get up above the deer browsing pressure to allow the woodland to regenerate at all. And as to the grey squirrel, commonly known as the tree rat amongst foresters, and indeed most of the population right up to the 60s and 70s, it's very much only recently that they've been thought of as cuddly and furry. And there was a time when youngsters were paid to kill them, paid by the tail, a penny for a squirrel's tail. Squirrels strip the bark of young, developing trees before they become a full, standard canopy specimen. They have their bark stripped right up near the top, killing the leading shoot of the tree and causing the crown to often break off in strong winds and leaving an ugly, stag-headed beast that really won't develop into a classic, healthy tree that we like to see in our woodlands. One of the benefits of grey squirrel is that they will often attack the sycamore. There are many sycamores in the wood behind me. Particularly over to my left, these young sycamore trees with their smooth bark are not a native of this country. They were introduced many years ago, and although a good quality timber, they have the habit of taking over our dark, unmanaged woodlands, as their seedlings are shade tolerant and will come up under even this densest shade. And they're not the favourite thing of the deer to eat. But you can see in the top of that tree all the damage, all the places where the tree forks, all the places where the bark is bare. All of that is the damage caused by grey squirrel, hindering our woodlands' future. Without action on deer and grey squirrels, and managing the woodlands at all, our woodlands don't have much of a future. Some may find it hard to believe when I say there are more deer in England now than there ever has been, but they're very good at hiding and they're nocturnal. Here we are at the Greenwood Centre. We're in Coalbrookdale on the edge of Telford and Newtown, in a steep-sided gorge adjacent to a large industrial plant at the end of a woodland track at a visitor centre. And on this woodland path you can see that the tips of all of this elm regeneration from this coppiced elm tree, every single one has got a dead tip. There's not a single bud on the end of a single branch on any that's alive on any of this bush, and all of that is the browsing of fallow deer, which will come in here at night and browse along here. We find the slots and the footprints in the woods. There's nowhere they won't get to without quite significant fencing to keep them out. In order to control this damage, you must manage a deer population. Left to their own devices, they'll breed at a very high rate. A deer population can increase at 20 or 30% per annum, and they'll become less healthy. The amount of food that's available to a wild deer population is variable anyway. These woodlands are neglected. There isn't much to eat on the forest floor, and they'll soon wipe out all of the young trees, the coppice regrowth, they'll eat bluebells. They'll devastate the ground floor, and they'll devastate farmers' crops as well. But eventually the deer will reach a population size, because remember they have no natural predators. They'll reach a population size that means some of them will not be getting enough food. And then you have unhealthy animals. You have the potential of disease to spread through the population. The way to keep a deer population healthy is controlled, managed culling, based on true censuses of a deer population. Experts finding out exactly how many deer there are in an area and calculating what the cull rate should be on an annual basis, and picking the unhealthy animals, the ones less likely to succeed, so that we end up with a healthy, managed deer population that doesn't hinder our woodlands. And this woodland over here, you can see we've cleared the understory, we've coppiced those understory species, and the next thing to do will be to thin out half of the tall trees you can see within this patch of woodland to allow the light through to the forest floor, to allow that understory layer to flourish and grow back as coppice regrowth, and for young trees to regenerate from seed, to replace these ones that we'll have cut out. And we can start to create that structure in the woodland of all trees at different stages that will give the security to that woodland and allow it to survive and prosper into the future. You can see the deer damage here, all these shoots having been bitten off by deer browsing, whereas this stem here has managed to escape the browsing and has grown up to 2 or 3 feet in length. They should all be like that. With the threats to our planet from climate change, we all know we have to reduce our carbon footprint. One of the best ways you can do that is going back to the thing that used to fuel and support our lives in the past, the woodlands. We need to bring these neglected woodlands back into management to produce timber, to build our houses and to fuel our homes. Timber that is carbon lean and not contributing to global warming.